Today we're going to help you find the waste. But before we do that, I'm just going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. Craig, if we can start with you and just maybe work our way down.
Craig Weinberg, Mindshare, Mobile Practice Lead for North America.
Hi, I'm Allison Owen. I work at the Integer Group, which is out of Denver, Colorado. We mainly focus on shopper marketing, but we also plan to buy media for mid-budget clients, so not the $500 million clients. So getting creative with reasonable budgets.
And Alexander Mars from Fun Valley. I'm the CEO over there.
Okay, so I thought we'd maybe just start with, one of the themes of the morning has been this notion of epic fails, and we're all heavy users of mobile ourselves personally. So if we can maybe share a personal experience of where we've had a promise gone unfulfilled or a bad user experience. I can just speak from example last night, checking into my hotel in Midtown Manhattan, checked into Foursquare, was promised a free umbrella with that check-in, and so I showed my smartphone to the reception desk, and they had no idea what the offer was. Presumably had no idea what Foursquare was, and obviously, left there pretty disappointed. Did not get my free object. So if you guys have similar experiences, maybe we can start that way. If you'd like to start, Allison.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I've had two in the last 24 hours. I think all of you have probably had this, but I'll start with the QR code. Sorry. I was on the airplane reading the in-flight magazine because I was really bored, and the flight was delayed. And there was a QR code in the in-flight magazine, but we were up in the air, and it was not a Wi-Fi enabled flight. So I have no idea why you would put that in there, since most people don't have internet access. So I think that's so ubiquitous now, using the QR code in an inappropriate way. And the second one was, I was walking over here this morning, and I got an ad for a local breakfast chain, it's a national breakfast chain. And I kind of thought, oh, isn't that what I've been preaching? It makes sense. I'm sure New York over-indexes on donuts, and I'm in New York, and so realistically, it probably makes sense. I'm sure I'm close to a donut shop. However, if you were looking at my desktop computer, you would know that based on my cookies, I would qualify as a health-conscious consumer, for all of you data people out there. And so you probably wouldn't have wasted the impression on me, because I'm not going to buy a donut. Then again, I just spoke to all of you about donuts, so maybe their advertising worked.
It's with ESPN, so I love ESPN. I love their strategy. I think they're one of the best player in the market. But on this ESPN Watch, maybe some of you have just the same application, so it's great. I'm just watching the game on my tablet. But during the TV commercials, it's just a big black screen. So during 2 minutes, I have just this black screen. So for me, it's just, if it's not my failure, just know if it's just maybe a failure of the industry. Because if we want to bring just more money from the advertisers, we need to get the system working for them. So if it's all this big application, a strong application that ESPN is launching in the market, it's crazy to see that even now, just 1 year after the launch, you still have this black screen saying ESPN is back in a few minutes.
Craig?
I can be pretty cynical. I'm sort of self-hating mobile guy. I really hate, on the QR code thing, I really hate seeing QR codes on underground subways in New York City. It drives me nuts. Not that I would necessarily engage with that QR code, but if I wanted to, I couldn't. We can't really cache QR codes in our readers. And I really, really hate when a QR code or an SMS code or anything is directing traffic to a non-mobile optimized site. And we were talking about sports earlier, and Turner did the NCAA tournament with streaming through all different platforms. And my favorite was clicking on the large beverage sponsor's brand, and it led to a flash creative on the iPad, which just to me was
that's bad.
epic fail. After I'd already paid money to download the app because they tried to monetize it this year.
Do you want to name the brand?
It was Coke.
Major epic.
But I love Coke.
Not a Mindshare client. It's easy.
At the same time, Coke, one of the best innovators in mobile. I think that's one of the takeaways here is that, for as far as we've come, there's still a level of innovation and experimentation, and we're still making some of the same mistakes that we've made in the industry that we made 5 years ago. So let's maybe start with the end in mind here. I think it might be useful to address how you guys mentioned in our conversation leading up to this, how much time you spend educating clients, how you try and get them on the right path. But how can we be more strategic about helping the client define success? How do you do that with your own clients, and how does that filter down to the final output, whether it's a mobile advertisement or a mobile ad buy or a mobile app?
I think there are two types of clients now, in my experience. Ones who really need the 101 deck just to educate them, which I actually find can be helpful but can also be detrimental. And I don't mean any offense to any vendors in the room, but often when we go in with a 101 cred deck, it sort of becomes a very sales pitch kind of meeting, and the clients can very easily tune out. So the other type of clients, which I think work best, is I don't think we need mobile specific goals. I think we need to understand what business goals are and what their objectives are and what their KPIs are, and then we just figure out what mobile is into that. I don't really think that we need to, yes, mobile's unique, we need specific metrics and objectives that are unique to mobile, but tell us what your business problem is, what are you trying to solve, and we'll figure out a way. We're sophisticated enough now. There's very little that we can't do with these devices anymore.
Allison, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think after you take that step of helping them objectively decide what they want to do, I do think, coming from the media kind of side, the metrics are really important. So we have new metrics. It's not the same thing that you should measure in digital. Trying to convert all of this stuff to GRPs is pushing an old metric onto a new medium. So it's talking to them about what are these new metrics. So yes, click-through rate is important. It's something we all kind of look at, and there's studies out there. I've done tons of research to give clients benchmarks. So what can they expect? Why should you move into mobile? Well, the average click-through rate is a 0.61. Your average click-through rate right now is 0.07, according to studies. And I think that that's something that's really important to translate to them. So tangible, this is how many visitors you're going to get from it, this is the traffic, this is what we can see and what we have seen. I found that that helps, giving them examples they can bite up and chew on.
And I think we need more money. So that's it's easy, but we're talking here about just wasting money. But how can you waste money if you have no money? So that's the thing. So we need to see how can we just so educate more, evangelize more. But we're doing the same for the last 5 or 6 years, and I think for now it's okay, but it's not just a huge success. So it's interesting to see we're trying to get more metrics, as you said, Allison, before. So at the I'm owned by just Purposes Group, and the Purposes Group just launched something called the Pool. And some of the people in that in the audience are just part of this program. It's mainly just a metric driven program. So it's a research program where you can get more data, and after it will be easier to sell this to the brands. But beside this, I think we just need to get more money and to convince them more. I think we have many issues between mobile media and mobile execution. I think we are still really just money is always going to the media side of the house. I'm not saying that's bad, but it's always tough if you can just start with your mobile strategy with all your own mobile ecosystem correct. You won't be able to buy just some media. And after, if you're buying some media, and I want to name, this fantastic beverage company because MediaPost it works for them. But beside this joke, I think it's important to get after when you are clicking on something, you need to get just a clear and understandable connection with the brand. So that's where we see that's what we see today. How can we change this? Ecosystem correctly, because for all of us now, it's still so tiny market. We need to make this change.
So how do we get more money? Is it closer alignment with the media team? Is it educating the client to the point where they are demanding that those purse strings open up? What's the best avenue in your view, Alexander, for better funding?
So I think if we are taking the food chain, so the very beginning, it's you guys. I'm assuming that most of you are vendors. So that's the very beginning of the chain. At the end of the food chain, it's the clients. We all want to work more with them. And in the middle, you have the agencies. That sucks. So you need to find a way to just and we need to find a way to just better sell our product. I mean, when it's our product, is your product just amongst ours, and to see and to explain how can we just do a better work for the brands. So on the brand side, I think they're training, or they are just getting this much more. Some of them have this chief mobile officer, some are just mobile, and I think Colin and Steve, it was very nice to have Colin Kinsella before on stage. It was interesting that the CEO of the largest digital agency here in the US explained how mobile has to be core and how mobile it has to be everywhere in the digital offices. That's really the first change. So I think agencies and digital agencies are starting to understand that they have to just bring mobile at the center, at the core. Honestly, and digital is maybe a different example, but most of the digital agencies are far from this, because for them, they still don't understand what mobile is. Mobile is a different screen, different experience, different UX, different UI, just different everything. And they want to say, okay, fine, I can do this. The result, is bad. It's a bad result. So all the big digital agencies, maybe it's different, for some of them, but most of them are just are not doing the work correctly. So that's where we are. You are just vendors. I think innovation, is coming from there. I think all the, righteous, entrepreneurs who are trying to do something. That's why we are trying to just, make this happen. And it's all about just, innovation. It's all about just, how can we bring this to the client? But at the very end, it's still, and which will be a question for you, my friend, working in the media agency. Why are you still spending $25K for the biggest campaign of the year? Why you're not able to spend just $500,000, when I say $1 million on mobile?
Oh, you want an answer? I think that all too often mobile is an afterthought, and that's, I think, the biggest mistake that we can make, and I agree with Alexander. I work at a media agency, but I'm really just passionate about mobile, and I found that that's where the budgets are to do mobile, which seems to take one step forward and about 3 to 5 back every day, depending on where we are. We need to be at the ground level. When strategy or comms planning is being figured out, we need to figure out a whole rethink of how we approach kind of consumer first insights. Otherwise, what's going to continue to happen is the teams are going to come to us, the digital teams, the strategy teams, whoever it may be, they're going to come to us and say, hey, we've got $200K left over from our budget because someone under-delivered, so what can we do in mobile? Well, sure, we can rush out the door a bunch of banners or some rich media or some video, but how effective is that really going to be? And to Alexander's point, I think budget-wise, with mobile, there's sort of 2 levels of budget. One is the media dollars, and then there's production. Production's still very expensive, and it still requires a high level of skill and expertise. That's what Alexander's team does really, really well. On the media side, though, we don't have people who've worked on both sides who understand the nuances of each. And often we're just robbing digital budgets, which are healthy for the most part, but they're still not huge or as much as the desktop people would want them to be. So what if we just took a little bit from TV? What if we took 1 GRP and took that in? That's a lot of money. We could do a lot with that in mobile, but convincing the client to do that is a whole other thing. And then are we talking to the TV buyers? Are we talking to the strategy team? So in the end, it's one giant loop, and mobile needs to be thought of at the beginning. We need to be brought in at the very, very beginning to have an influence on that. Otherwise, we're just going to continue trailing along, as an afterthought.
That's a great observation. I mean, we can say and preach mobile first till we're blue in the face, but until we actually do it, we're never going to achieve that level of integration. So to that point, is it the creative agency's responsibility or the lead brand agency's responsibility to drive that point home with the brand? Because that, for my money, has been, is the major misstep, is improper planning on the front end in order to not fully achieve that integrated approach that includes mobile.
Coming from the media side and the epic battle that is between creative and media always, I think I think we're in this weird time where we all say mobile has to be first and mobile is really important and everyone in this room has bought into it. But what we've taught our clients over the past 10 years is that you can evaluate this stuff. And it's not just GRPs and saying, well, great job, that means that it's working. So now they look at a mobile device and they say, well, is it? What is this? And what am I getting? And how many of this? And they want a test and they want to prove the test works. And that's how you get more money. And that's how you get it at the beginning. So it's almost like you have to execute on it. You have to execute well, not make mobile failures, and spend a ton of money on an app that no one downloads, right? You have to do it right, and you have to have a really strong connection in between the creative and media agency. But if you make a great creative and no one pushes it, then even if they thought about mobile first, there's no way to get the word out. So I think it's really like you have to prove yourself now. With all these media and the tracking ability, if you don't prove it, they're going to cut it. But they're accepting of TV because there's not the same type of metrics. Yep. So they say it works because that's what they've been told for 45 years. And I think that that's the part where, like, if the agencies aren't working together, then it doesn't work. But realistically, even if they are, they better do it right or else they're going to burn their bridge.
But to that, I think, to your comment, Shaun, before, I think it's interesting to see maybe the way, and maybe let's say, two our biggest clients are clients where we are just working with the creative agency very well. It means that the creative agencies have still some some very good leads with the clients for many reasons. And I'm just taking this an example of Bank of America. We are the mobile mobile agency of record for them, but we're just working with 26 other agencies. So it's a lot, but at least we are all together around the table. So it's not just like you said, an afterthought for, at least for this one. When we have a meeting in New York, it's we need to book a big room because we are so many. But mobile is maybe not at the core, maybe not at the center, but part of it. And it means a lot for us. The other client is on P&G, and pretty the same. Is on another program called PowerMat. It's a new product built by Duracell. Same. The lead is made by the creative agency, and after MediaVest is there for the media and for multicultural, for PR. But mobile is also just part of it. So for us, I think if you are still siloed, and that's the issue we can have with some media agencies or some digital agencies, mobile is somewhere else. Mobile is another team. Mobile is even named mobile. When we hopefully it will be just part of the all the ecosystem. So I think it's the creative agencies still have a very important point of view and share voice at the client tables.
So is there a lack of digital insight or mobile insight as it relates to that consumer behavior? I mean, it's pretty clear that everybody has a phone, and I think we have half smartphone penetration in the States. And brands typically do a pretty good job of articulating their consumer's journey, right? Their path to purchase as it relates to building their, TV equity campaign or what have you. Is there a lack of digital insight as it relates to mobile usage, and does a brand need a role of mobile at each step in that path? Have you guys had those conversations with your clients, and do you see that as a need that needs to be filled?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so many times they understand who their target is and what they do and how they purchase, right? They've spent 10 years collecting data on their website that tells them that this page is sticky and this page leads to a sale, and this hopefully they've done that. And they have all of that data, but then how does that translate? And we found, so one of the biggest clients that we're doing something with right now is a motorcycle manufacturer. Obviously, there's a Goliath in the category that everyone knows. And they're trying to figure out how to creatively kind of chip away at the Goliath. But they say, well, our guy is 35 to 54, and he likes being outside, and he probably doesn't use his phone much. Well, how do you know? And maybe he does. And maybe he works at a business and is an executive, and he's on his phone 20 out of the 24 hours a day, ridiculously responsive. And it really just took us putting in place mobile trials and talking about it and adding mobile components. And now we are having, and I think that's something that's important to admit, there are always quirks and weird things in the road. And we were having one of those, and I was kind of terrified to make the call because I thought they were going to yank it. And the client said, "No way, mobile's so important. Like, this is core." And that's exactly what you want. But they only got to that point after we kind of collected the data, proved to them mobile is core, what they're using, how they're using it, and how it relates to their bottom line.
Other observations about consumer journey and how you help build the case in that regard?
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. We're at 100% penetration for phones in the United States. I think that speaks a lot. 50% are smartphones now. The problem is, though, I think a lot of people look at some of those time spent versus money spent charts and see the huge discrepancy, and it's the largest in mobile. But you don't necessarily monetize a text message. You don't monetize a phone call. People want to be left alone on their phones, and they consider it a safe kind of private area where they're going to engage with who or what they want to engage in. And going back to the creative and media clash, I don't really care where the spark comes from, as long as we can have a say and as long as we can help do something cool. But oftentimes the media dollars don't necessarily provide value and utility to someone who's using their phone. And it's hard to predict when someone's going to just fire up Google on their Android or their iPhone and search for something. In that moment, if you're not there, if you don't have an always-on presence with search, let's say, then you've lost them. And again, if you send them to a non-mobile optimized site, people don't have patience for that. You might be more lucky to catch someone in their newsfeed on Facebook. But I think that even with Alexander saying, 25K, 50K test budgets, yeah, they're small. There's not much you can do with them, but we have an even greater onus on us, the three of us here, to prove that it can work. And we have a QSR client who we have spent a disproportionate amount of time working on tracking and analytics. They really want to know what their mobile cost per order is, and we can't tell them that because we've got all of these different patchwork SDKs and this pixel, that pixel, and we use all these different network SDKs, which I think is a real violation of what third party really should mean, and no one's really figured this out. We're getting close, but no one's figured it out. So for a client that's very DR focused, or for clients that's very sales or conversion focused, they're not going to trust this medium because we can't tell them that banner A led to sale B. And that's a really, really big problem. And I spend more time on this during every day than I care to admit. And it takes away time from brainstorming ideas and strategy with the clients and understanding what their problems are. And it's unfortunate. We're getting there, but it's a real roadblock.
So much of this channel is about helping the client make the right choices. One of my best friends is a digital director for a major nonprofit in DC. Millions of donations come in through their website every year. And they had no mobile strategy. They had no mobile offering. They were in the very nascent stages of developing a mobile website. But the CEO got an iPad. And the CEO, a couple days later, she got an email from the CEO that says, "We need a suite of apps," right? So to the point about more money, there's obviously a large fund associated with that need, but is a suite of apps the right step for that particular brand at that stage in the game? Do you embrace that need, or do you push back on the client or the brand and say, look, let's make sure we're approaching this in the right way? I'm curious about panel's thoughts on that type of scenario.
So back to the comment on the mobile strategy, I think it's that's all the the story about just what we have seen the last couple of years is, okay, I will build an app, whatever, because it's fun, because it's a shiny object, because the CEO wants to have an app, or just I will buy something, a banner or something, because I still have just 25K or 50K maybe left over. So it's we need to find a different path and different way from those two. So basically for now it's really this mobile strategy, and the good thing is we have much more just phone calls, emails from brands asking us to build this, because basically they are lost. Most of them, not all of them, most of them, they want to understand what they can do about just mobile sites, application, Android versus another OS, and so on and so forth. So it's good. Honestly, it's good for us. It's good for me. Just you see a Fun Valley, where's the mobile shop, and we're there. We're therefore helping them But in this very overcrowded area, they don't know exactly what they have to do with their money. So the first step for us is really to start with this mobile strategy, to build their mobile ecosystem correctly, and after it will be much easier to go and talk to the media agencies. So it's exactly the way, but most of the time we need to have the digital director, CMO, CDO, whatever his position is, to understand this and to start from the very beginning. And sometimes starting with the very beginning is a lot of frustration, and it will take maybe 6 months to have something up and running. But I think what we've seen in the last month, and I think it's a good transition.
I think that's a good point. So talent and staffing, not on the agency side, but on the client side. When you have a mobile assignment, whether it's an app or a mobile web or integrated campaign, and the brand marketer might still not be there in terms of education, what kind of team on their end should they have in place to ensure that we pull this off correctly? Should IT be involved? Should brand marketers be involved? What's the attitude there?
I think IT is really important. People who have identified themselves and want to work in an IT department have already raised their hand that they're passionate about technology. They're the first people you have to get on your team, in my opinion. At a mid-range level, a lot of times they're the ones who are actually running the analytics on the website, or who are using the BI systems and are going to get a lot of your data after you kind of pass them over onto their side. So there's someone who's going to be critical, and by implementing a mobile strategy and then subsequent mobile campaigns are going to affect their job pretty significantly. So they need to be in the room so that they can help develop that. I also think overcoming, if the brand manager maybe isn't as familiar, I think it's trying to take the knowledge that you already have, chances are you've been working with them before on some other form of digital something, or potentially even non-digital activity, and using that. So for example, we have a client who we do just some project work with, and I knew that based on about the age, they didn't feel like people who buy their product use cell phones. And it's a different one than the motorcycle client, and they kind of looked at it and they said, well, it's my kid, my 13-year-old kid, they're the one that's glued on their cell phone, and that's what they use. And so I think that that's something you have to be aware of as you go in. Who needs to be in the room to help convince them otherwise? I think IT is huge. I think having someone from your agency that's willing to be that mobile advocate for them, that's being patient and working through their problems, and when they call you and say, we don't know why this isn't working, or our cookies are all messed up now because of something you guys did, like, someone has to be there and be willing to do that. And I think oftentimes the agency should step up and raise their hand.
We've seen the growth of mobile centers of excellencies with certain clients, and it's sort of a blessing and a curse, because it's a blessing because, yeah, they're saying, okay, we're going to talk about mobile, and we're going to have someone who's going to take all of your decks and put them together and ship them off to this guy and that guy, and maybe a senior guy, maybe a junior guy. But when you're just moonlighting in this area and you're not incentivized to do it, IT, brand manager, CMO, it's just always going to be a hobby. And yeah, budgets are tight in terms of human resources and reallocating people from digital, let's say, to work on mobile on the brand side. But if you don't make that switch and reallocate your human resources, then I'm not really sure you're ever going to get that far, because the clients they're never going to be really fully invested. And I agree with your point about the CEO. Generally, the CMO gets an iPhone, or the CEO's kid gets an iPad for Christmas, and holy crap, wow, I had no idea.
Creates instant demand.
Instant demand. I mean, kids are like the best thing for us in this business. But my test, though, is my mom, who just turned 60 and is ordering things on Amazon left and right. And when she asked me what she should get my wife for a birthday present, and it's not on Amazon, she's like, well, how do I get it? I can't order it on my phone. So if my mom can do it, who's on her iPad and her iPhone all day, then anyone can do it. That's really my test. If it's too complicated for her to do it, then we shouldn't really be doing it.
So from an awareness building standpoint, what are some of the more underrated aspects of mobile marketing that you think brands aren't looking at, and maybe jumping too far ahead into app development, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense from an awareness standpoint in most cases. Observations about underrated tactics in the channel that brands aren't looking at?
I think location is still not being used enough. That's a benefit of mobile, right? We know, not exactly, but we know pretty much exactly where you are. And I think with quick service restaurants, I work on some of those too, that's super important, your proximity to it, like I talked about with the donuts. But then layering on the other targets, I think. Additional targeting is still not there yet in mobile. There's some people that are really killing it in the space and starting to put that on top of it. So location plus targeting. I think that that's really underrated. I think everyone skips. They want to do the great thing. They're already on tablet, and it's like, my God, step back and go to mobile phones. Like, focus on one thing at a time and focus on making sure that what you're doing on the phone is getting to the right person instead of just doing it for the sake of doing it.
Alexander, underrated?
Yeah, I think mobile is underrated. So after, it's it will really depend on your strategy, but location for sure. It's a no-brainer. I think we need to do much more. But again, in terms of location, it's all about just startups and innovation. Is the Place AQ, is the Shopkick, is all those people who have to just bring IDs and bring something just to the client's table. So for us, is location, yes, is how you do all the in-store, is at home. It's all about context. So we need to do a better work to sell more product. I have to say, when you are at home, how can I know that you are in your kitchen just cooking? And then how can I just place the right ad? Same in-store, same when you're on the bus. So that's everything about location, and that's what we are just what we want to convince the client, because when you are so close to help them just selling more products, it will be much easier to get the money. So it's always the discussion and between us and them, saying that now you need to do more in mobile, but their first answer is okay. But are you sure it will just increase my my bottom line? And that's why in-store and location, and both of them are very important and very core to that point.
Steve, should we go to some questions?
Yeah.
Up front here.
I'm Alberto. I have a question on location. How do you guys advise your clients? Because one of the issues with location is that, sure, it sounds great in theory, but one of the struggles, like even Foursquare has, is that there's no quick way to get this without battery life being consumed by the customer. So a lot of customers, if you build all your features based on location, that might be a danger that you face, and your engagement rates may be lower. So what kind of advice or what kind of strategies you guys come up with for that kind of thing?
So I think it's a very valid point. What we are just doing at the Publicis level, we're just launching a program called Solo Mobile Lane. It's the same. It's about just location and mobile. We saw this the same issue with a lot of clients are asking us, how can I spend more money in this location this business? And honestly, we didn't have the answer, because we don't know what kind of ad units, so we don't have enough information to get the right answer to the client. So what we did in my group is, let's do a ton of research about this. Let's ask people to come in, vendors, and build something we could be just as an industry standard. So because your question is something I can't answer to that question now. So we are just working as an industry with many of you, and we're trying to just develop the new ad unit or ad formats. We can maybe answer some of the part of this question, hopefully.
Well, one issue is, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. So we're using the actual location that's sent when you call an ad. So a standard banner ad. So it tells like an approximate location, and then we've overlaid data to highlight into that. So not the push notifications, or not establishing your own geofences yet. Because you're right, like on my phone, if I make a geofence for here saying don't forget this or that, then it is going to drain my battery life. But we use the natural thing that's occurring when advertising is working. And that's our way to respond to it initially. But geofencing is fascinating, personal geofencing.
I think we get caught up in a lot of different layers and targeting, and if you go to an AdMob or Google, they'll actually recommend that you only put 2 layers of targeting on a campaign. There's this notion that we can target the Wall Street guy who's on the train going to Wall Street on a Tuesday morning with some type of, I don't know, SAP ad or something. That's great, but are we reducing our volume and scale by trying to be so super targeted? And I think that we focus all too often on location and not as much on context. What's the context of a place? I mean, this place, 82 Mercer, seems pretty clear that it's a conference center. So what type of people are coming in and out of this place versus targeting you who happens to be here? So I think we just tend to complicate things a little too much. And another aspect is we've been running with some mobile DSPs, which the network guys in here don't kill me, but we've been running with DSPs where we can actually optimize against everything that's working in real time using algorithms. So if we're finding that a QSR ad is working in Tulsa at 3 o'clock on Tuesdays, then let's just optimize against that. But again, it depends on what you're trying to do, who you're trying to target, and again, what the context is.
I like that comment about reducing the complexity. I think one of the biggest missteps that brands make is targeting too much, perhaps, or having too many layers of complexity as they approach the mobile channel. Other questions? Back here.
Thank you. Just want to know your feelings on if it should be mobile site on its own or more of the HTML5 that's one site that's compatible for any device. And I guess to the second question on top of that, once you get them there, for instance, if it's a QSR or a car dealership or if they're at home, do you want to ask them so the experience is different? Or what would you do differently knowing where they are?
So for mobile web, should we be building device-specific experiences? Should we be building responsive design experiences that work across all devices?
I think it's maybe a question for you. You're a digital, part of digital agency.
In my view, it depends on obviously the objective of the business, the content that you need to deliver to the customer at that point in time. Obviously, there's been a lot of discussion about responsive design over the last couple of years, and I think that's where a lot of the digital agencies are trying to bone up in terms of development chops and design, UX, UI. So for the future, I would say a responsive approach that takes advantage of HTML5 is where you want to be, in terms of where you want to be striving.
I would also add to that, remember the benefits of the phone they talked about earlier today. Click to call, how close are you to any of this? I think those are important, and that you should add them to a mobile experience, and just making sure that you're compatible for that. Those are your action.
Yeah, and also making sure that your calls to action are relevant to the device. Taking advantage of location is a great one. I think it was the guy from Google who talked about find a store near you as an add-on there.
But one last thought. On the other side of that, please make sure that your customer service is educated on this stuff, because, like Shaun's example, the hotel clerk had no idea what he was talking about when he went for his umbrella. So if you're an automotive brand and you're doing click-to-call, and you call the dealership and they have no idea what you're talking about or where you came from, that's a failed experience. So there's a whole other side of employee education that we need to consider as well.
I think we're going to wrap up. I'd like to thank the panelists, if we can give them a round of applause.